Well, welcome everyone to AVLI's virtual retreat. Reflect, reset, refine, and recharge. We are thrilled that you're with us, and we're very happy to provide the opportunity and welcome everyone who's joining. People are still filtering in, but we're delighted to have the opportunity to give teachers a chance to unwind and unpack from this most extraordinary year, and to have a chance to sort things out and to figure out how to go forward. So I'm Carol Kelly. I'm an AVLI team member, and I'm also a teacher for AVLI. And I'm going to just get the ball rolling this morning by introducing the AVLI president and founder, Jeff Hausman. And Jeff will introduce our keynote speaker today. And what will happen during the webinar, just a few housekeeping things, is you'll be able to see the panelists as they speak and deliver their keynote addresses. And if you do have any questions, just type them into the chat box, and we'll respectfully wait until the end of the keynote if there's anything to bring up, or perhaps hang on to them for the full group discussions. And just before we leave and move on to the next phase, I'll have some more housekeeping, but it'll be pertaining to the website. So without further ado, Jeff, this is Jeff Hausman, the AVLI president and founder.
Oh, thanks, Carol. Hey, so my role today is pretty easy, right? I mean, so I get to do a couple things. I get to do a few introductions. I get to say a prayer, and then I get to introduce Elaine, which is a real pleasure for me. What I want to do first is like we always try and do, is to start with prayer, and noting the sort of the theme of these of this session, and sort of the experience that you've been walking through for the past 18 months. This prayer for me has always been important, and it's been a good one for me. As Carol mentioned, so I'm the founder of AVLI, and so when they were getting it off the ground a good number of years ago, I said this prayer a lot. And so I wanted to share it with you as well, because it just, it means a great deal to me, and I think it resonates for this particular time. So, so this is a Thomas Merton prayer. You've probably seen it before. So, my Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself, and the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you, and I hope that I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire, and I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. All right, so with that, we can get started, and it's sort of an appropriate prayer for today, in that it's really, today's really kind of about consolations and desolations in many ways, and so it's that's the reason I think that prayer is so right. Before I introduce Elaine, I just want to say thank you to the Jesuit Schools Network for partnering with us on this and allowing us to help support their network in this endeavor. And Tom Noonan in particular, who's with us today, has just been over the last 18 months. It's just been a real strong partner of ours, and has always been an open ear for me personally. And so I just appreciate Tom and his work. So I wanted to get that little piece of housekeeping out of the way as well. But now I really get to do the thing I'm here for, and that's to introduce Elaine. And I'm not going to kind of work through, you can read about Elaine and on the website, kind of gives you a little bit of background on Elaine and what she does and all that sort of thing. I'll just keep it short in that she's a teacher at Creighton Prep. Okay, and the reason that that's important is because Creighton Prep is where I went, where I worked, and more importantly, Elaine and I are neighbors, right? She literally lives across the street and down a house, okay? And so when we were talking, and we've just been, at least I think, I think we're friends, and we enjoy time. We've enjoyed over the years plenty of glasses of wine, sitting on the front porch, just talking about things. And I just have always appreciated kind of her approach to no matter what the topic is, the way she just approaches things has just always been appealing to me. And I just find myself listening with greater intent when Elaine's talking, and that means something for me. She's got a way about her that is just, I have just really appreciated. So when we really started talking about this program, and the idea behind this program, the first thing that came to mind is, holy smokes, Elaine would be perfect for this. And so I'm really glad that she said yes to this, because when I got to kind of watch her over the last 18 months from a distance, right? I mean, this is COVID time, so it was from a distance, but kind of recognizing what was going on in her household just across the street, right? 3 teenagers, you know, a freshman, right? Which, and we all know, holy smokes, this year for freshmen is just so terribly difficult. And then a teacher, right, in one of our schools who I know takes great pride in her work. And somebody who really just, you know, wanted to do all she could in these imperfect circumstances. And she wasn't embracing it by any means, this new reality, right? But she was going to try her best to get through it, and in a way that really kind of responded to the needs and particularly to the needs of kids. And so she participated last summer in our Ignatian teaching program that probably many of you did as well. And just even watching her in that program, kind of just being in the weeds with teachers and kind of sharing ideas and so forth, was just really gratifying for me to see her at work. And so I think you're going to really enjoy what Elaine has to say today. And so I'm just going to turn it over to her and let her get started. So thank you, and enjoy your next 3 days. I really hope you do.
Well, gosh, Jeff, thank you. That was very, very kind. And thank you to everyone for being here today to reflect. My name is Elaine Ayers. Like Jeff said, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska at Creighton Prep, an English teacher there. And I want to tell everyone, I really admire your fortitude and commitment to sign on to do this. Because to be honest, this was not a talk I was eager to give. Like, I am not going to say no to my neighbor, Jeff. You know, he's helped me like wrangle my kids when I had 3 toddlers. I'm gonna help out Jeff any way I can. And so, you know, and it sounded like a worthwhile endeavor. It just didn't sound like something I wanted to do, because there's, at first anyway, because there's so much in me that just wants to run away from the year we've had. I've had a consoling vision during my teaching this year of imagining sticking my head beneath a chocolate fountain and just guzzling until I achieve a catatonic state. And then maybe wake up in the fall to a year that looks more recognizable. I have a temptation to regard the year that we've had as something like an abscessed tooth, you know, something that I just want to yank and discard and maybe relegate to this weird reference point that I look back at, and all I have to say about it is, thank God that's over. You know, so it doesn't come naturally to me to really sit with this year, this past teaching year, and then some, year and a half, really. And I mean, I think that makes sense. I would never want to repeat this year. This year has been a year of absurd pain, you know, really absurd suffering. But at the same time, I know and I believe that if I look at this year solely as a time of absurd pain and discard it, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. You know, I am abdicating my mission to find God in all things, and to look at this year ultimately as meaningless suffering would be an act of despair. And I don't want to do that either. I want to despair even less than I want to look at this year. So I'm going to do the thing I don't want to do, and sit with this year a little bit. You know, and as Jesuit educators, we know that maybe by examining a little bit of context and experience, we can have some helpful reflection. And so that's what I'm going to do. Just in terms of context, I'm sure there's a lot of intersecting personal context that I share with everybody here. You know, I'm a teacher at a Jesuit school. I'm married, you know, I've been married for almost 22 years. I'm a parent to 3 kids, 3 teenagers. I am a daughter to 2 elderly parents, one of whom has been facing some pretty significant health challenges. And so all of those contexts of my identity have, as it has for, I'm sure, all of you, it's pulled me in some very straining directions, and it's made things tough this year. And I know that doesn't make me unique at all. I also know the year we've had has been part of the context that we all share. Certainly the pandemic, that goes without saying, but also worth mentioning in this crowd that the horrible, agonizing national reckoning we've had with race in our country has been part of the context of this year, all year, well, in you know, centuries. And then the very divisive presidential election we've had this year that culminated in an attack on peaceful transitions of power and the foundations of democracy, you know, have just added heaping helpings of anxiety and pain to an already tough year. And I have found myself so many times this year asking the questions, what the hell is happening? And who the hell are we? And I know, again, none of that makes me unique in this crowd. I think we're all there in various points of intersection. I think part of my context that might make me unique, and I kind of hate to brag, you guys, is I have an amazing capacity for denial. If denial could be an Olympic event, I could be Simone Biles. I am so good at it. And so, like, for example, a few years ago, just to establish my bona fides with denial, a few years ago, I was attacked by a violent stomach flu. And it came on so suddenly that, like, as I look back, I can see, like, half hour by half hour, I could feel the quality of my well-being like ticking downward. But it was right at the end of spring break. I couldn't take any time off of work. I didn't feel like I could take any time off work. So I kept telling myself, I am not getting sick. I'm not sick. And then I found myself in the shower, you know, to try to kind of perk up. And I felt myself sort of shimmy against the tile and slide onto the floor in the shower and tell myself, I'm not sick, right? I mean, just because I've never sat down in the shower before doesn't mean that I'm sick. I probably just never thought about it, you know. And then, of course, like an hour later, I had confirmation that I could not deny I was sick. You know, it was rough. So that's my capacity for denial. I will deny and deny and deny until I can't deny anymore. And so that is the context, you know, maybe kind of a fuller context of what formed my experience for this year. And my denial pushed me to to ignore and misinterpret the weight I was experiencing all year. You know, just like I felt like lying down in the shower, like I could feel the weight, but I was not going to admit where it was coming from. I was only willing to concede my job was overwhelming. You know, it was professional. And so like that wasn't an outright lie. Like my job had swelled to proportions that I couldn't imagine, you know, like I'm sure it did for all of us. I was recreating everything on a daily basis every day for 5 quarters. I was teaching in the hybrid, as I'm sure many of you were, where like we're all meeting at the same time. Half the kids are in the room, half the kids are learning remotely, and that's how we learned most of the year. Hybrid teaching is what I like to call the worst of both worlds. It was so hard. And then, you know, I had the responsibility as a teacher to address the social climate we were facing as a nation, that my community of Omaha, Nebraska was facing locally as well, with the racial reckoning we were and are experiencing. And so while all of this was going on, you know, I would feel these teeming, roiling, weighty questions almost physically in my body. These questions of what the hell is happening and who the hell are we? But my denial allowed me to answer, I'm just going to work hard. Hard work will save the day with this. That's how I'm going to cope. And that's as far as I was consciously able to go. So my answer to the questions was work, and that answer was denial. But here's the thing. Here's how I know it was denial. Teachers are always working really hard. As you know, anyone who has survived their first year of teaching knows what crazy hard work is. My first year of teaching was an absolute unabated ego beating. I have never worked so hard to be so bad at a job in my life. and so you survive your first year of teaching, you know how to work hard. And the thing is, if you continue to teach, you are always signing on for transformative exhaustion. You know, and it's good. It keeps us sharp and it keeps us growing, but we're always signing on to do new things, maybe teach a new prep, take on a new role, pursue professional development, teach new texts. You know, we get new students with new challenges. We are always signing on for exhaustive transformation or transformational exhaustion, and folding in the circumstances of our culture with what we do. And I had told myself that this year, that's what I was dealing with. I was dealing with the exhaustion I understood, you know, that this transformational exhaustion was a worthy adversary that I had met many times. And this was the newest and the most extreme ideation of it, but I'd faced it before. And I knew I could survive it because I already had so many times in 24 years of teaching. And honestly, I gotta say, I'm really thankful for the power of denial. Like I see my dissociative states sometimes as a real blessing, because it allowed me to get through. You know, somehow, you know, like you, I hit my marks this year. And education happened, and I was able to put kids through paces and in ways I never would have sought out. This denial that I'm just working hard allowed me to do some really hard things with my life. when, you know, I did all the grocery shopping for my parents prior to their vaccination because I live in town with them. And so when I would go to their garage and stand across the garage from them and drop off their groceries and talk to them, you know, my parents would say, man, you look down, are you all right? And I'd say, I'm just tired. And not let myself go there and think about how awful it was to just see my parents through the garage and how lucky I was I could see them like that and that they were healthy. My denial allowed me to find the words to give my own kids some very hard no's, you know, to say things to them as I denied them access to things that gave them joy and form their identity. And I could say things to them like, hey guys, you know, your dad and I are trying to MacGyver this school year together with spit and duct tape. You can't do a lot of the things you want to do, you know, without considerable restrictions. Because if you do, you're going to bring this virus into this house and you're going to screw up all of this work that you're doing and your dad and I are doing. So no, you can't see your friends unless you're taking all these precautions. You can't go to that kid's house at all because their family doesn't believe in any of this stuff. And so that denial gave me those words because I could frame it all as work. This is going to screw up the work. This denial allowed me to set up my school year for some tough conversations about the social climate we were enduring as a community and a nation, because that's what teachers do. And so, you know, instead of stopping at, I'm going to be an inadequate conduit for these conversations, for these discussions, for these assignments, it's like, well, that's what a teacher does. You just do it. And so I could deny like how meager I felt to the task of what we were facing as a nation beyond the pandemic. And not open myself up to all that anxiety. I just pushed into the denial. And I just kept telling myself, you know, what I was feeling was simply overwork. And, you know, that overwork was part of it. Like you, I went home every night and worked for hours about every day. So that's what I told myself. My denial has its limits though. As good as I am at it, I'm only human. And, you know, I had a really good run with it. But near the end of the school year, I taught some senior classes this year. I was I had already taught my last senior class. I teach senior composition. And so the class meetings were over. You know, I carried them to the finish line that far, but I was doing my grading at the end of the term, as we all do. And I had deliberately saved this assessment for the last one to grade because I can grade it fast. The last composition my seniors wrote, or one of the last compositions they wrote, was called The Personal Narrative on Gratitude. And it really was just a thank you letter. And it's kind of a perfect last assignment. The student picks one person who's made a difference and has impacted them and writes them basically a thank you letter. And so it's a perfect last assignment because it makes me feel good. I think it's a really good reflection for them. And maybe most importantly, I can really grade it fast and generously. So it ticks a lot of boxes, gives the kids some nice cushion, makes me feel good. And it's a perfect way for me to be able to like stick a fork in the ear, say it's done. And so, you know, I'm about 75% of the way through those personal narratives on gratitude, reading these letters kids have written to important people in their lives. And I get to one letter And this young man had written to his father, and about I think it was the second paragraph in his letter, I wrote down what he said. He got to this line: "Dad, I want to thank you for what you said to me in the hospital after I tried to kill myself." And my denial cracked. This experience this young man had happened. I had only had him in class for that semester. So this was something I didn't know he had experienced. And of course, I felt awful that he went through this, was going through this. I felt such pain for his family. And I was also really struck by the poignance and the beauty of his letter to his dad. And I felt some consolation that he had had a good semester, and it looked like he was coming out on the other side of this. So, there was the magnitude of all of those feelings for what that meant for that kid. But when I read that line, where the denial cracked, was it felt like someone had turned on one of those ultraviolet lights, where, like you can go into a hotel room and turn on one of those lights and you can see all the germs and all the dirt. And except for me, it felt like this light showed all the sadness and all the anxiety and all the pain that was surrounding all of us. It felt like it was all over my students, and it had been all year. And I could see I was covered in it myself. And like a little bit of reality penetrated through that crack. Like, this is not just overwork. But I still had grading to do, and I still had my underclassmen classes to get through. And I was like, nope, I cannot go there right now. So I threw on some sunglasses and I threw on some grubby clothes, and I hit the pause in my grading, because I knew I couldn't keep going at that point. And instead I got out the lawnmower and I mowed the lawn, and I just walked every square foot of my yard and let some tears drip out. But as I walked through my yard, I just endeavored to cut a recognizable, regular pattern into not just my lawn, but into the feelings of fear and chaos that I had been trying to hold at bay for over a year. So eventually I got my grading done, and I did finish the school year. And I'm still trying to summon the guts to really process it instead of simply discarding it. But I know this: before I really start sorting through my backpack and deciding what I want to keep and what I want to build on and what I want to just let go, first, I just need to set it down. I just need to let it down. And I think maybe we all need to take a moment to mourn, but probably also really need to take a moment to marvel at just how much we've carried and how long we've carried it. And so with that, I just want to thank you for listening. And I want to wish all of us a much, much lighter load next year. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Elaine. This is going to be an interesting process, because my job is to just move from one thing to the next and help everyone that's online to get there. that I'm a teacher too. And I think as are all of you, so struck by the words that Elaine has said and so connected to what she's expressed. And it didn't do me any good to put on a little extra makeup today because now some of it's teared off, but that's absolutely what this process is about. So thank you so much, Elaine. We're really grateful for your words and for your insight and for your spirit to share with us and to start this process of setting down. I think that's absolutely appropriate. Set the backpack down first because you can't go through it unless you do that. So thank you. I have a few words just about the website and about the process going forward. So for everyone that's online, and I'll repost this, I'm going to stop the recording now and talk about a bit of housekeeping.